The galaxy had seen many wars, many invasions, but none like this. The distant stars twinkled quietly in the vast expanse of space as an alien fleet approached Earth. It was not just any fleet. This was the largest the galaxy had ever seen, a powerful force ready to conquer. Their mission was clear. Earth would fall, and humanity would be wiped out. But no one on Earth knew this was coming. The aliens, a race of beings with advanced technology and deadly weapons, had been watching humanity from afar for years. They had observed how Earth's defenses had evolved, how humanity had grown more powerful with each passing year. But the aliens had a secret, something the humans could never have imagined. The fleet, filled with ships of unimaginable power, had come not just to conquer Earth, but to prove something to themselves. They were here to show the galaxy that no species, not even humanity, could stand in their way. As the alien fleet crossed the edge of the solar system, its enormous ships began to block out the stars. For the first time, Earth's sensors picked up their presence. A warning went out, but it was already too late. The invaders were here. Back on Earth, people went about their normal lives. It was just another quiet day. The sky was clear. The sun was shining, and everything seemed peaceful. But as soon as the alien ships entered Mars' orbit, panic began to spread. Humanity had been oblivious to the threat lurking in the depths of space. But now, there was no hiding from it. The world's leaders scrambled, attempting to make sense of the approaching fleet. What did they want? Why had they chosen Earth? Then, in a moment of horror, Earth's communication systems went dark. The massive alien ships seemed to grow larger with every passing second, and the silence on Earth was deafening. Every nation's military tried to send out signals, but nothing got through. For a brief moment, it seemed like Earth was utterly powerless against this overwhelming force. Back in the alien fleet, their leaders stood in silence. The first part of their plan had gone perfectly. The humans had no idea what was coming. But then, something strange happened. As the fleet got closer to Mars, their systems started to flicker. Ships that had once been in perfect harmony began to malfunction. Communication between the vessels went silent. What was happening? The fleet's commander, an alien known as Zarek, was unnerved. He had never experienced anything like this before. Their advanced technology should have easily made it to Earth without a single issue. But now, something was wrong. The fleet wasn't stopping, but they were moving slower. The closer they got to Mars, the more their systems began to fail. "Is it a malfunction?" Zarek demanded, turning to his engineers. "Why are we being hindered?" "We don't know, Commander. There's interference, but we can't trace its source. The closer we get, the worse it gets," one of the engineers reported. A feeling of unease swept through the alien fleet. They had come expecting an easy victory. Earth was nothing compared to the mighty power they had at their disposal. But now, the unknown force threatening them made them hesitate. Was it human technology? Was Earth hiding something they hadn't anticipated? Just as Zarek was about to issue new orders, a strange signal echoed through the fleet. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from anything they had ever encountered before. It came from Mars, from beneath the surface. A frequency they hadn't seen, a signal unlike anything in the galaxy. Zarek's heart skipped a beat. "Commander, this signal. It's unlike anything we've ever detected," the lead scientist said, his voice filled with shock. "What is it? Is it a trap?" Zarek demanded, already suspecting the worst. "I don't know, but it's definitely coming from Mars. And it's strong, very strong," the scientist responded. For a moment, the entire fleet was paralyzed. What should they do? They had never expected to encounter a force like this. Mars, the red planet, was supposed to be a lifeless wasteland. What could possibly be hidden there that could stop their advanced technology? As Zarek pondered his next move, the signal grew louder, more insistent. It was clear that it wasn't just a malfunction or an anomaly. It was something sent with purpose. Something watching. The fleet's engineers scrambled to isolate the source of the signal, but the more they tried, the more the interference grew. It wasn't just technology malfunctioning. It was something far deeper, something that felt almost alive. "We need to investigate," Zarek said, finally breaking the silence. "Prepare a scout ship. Send it down to the surface of Mars. Find out what's happening." The alien fleet, once confident in its overwhelming power, was now filled with uncertainty. They were not the only ones watching Mars, and the signal was just the beginning. What was waiting for them on the Martian surface? Back on Earth, humanity had no idea what was happening in the skies above them. The world waited in terrified silence, unsure of what to expect. Would this mysterious signal lead to their salvation? Or was it a trap, one that would lead to their destruction? In the darkness of space, the alien fleet prepared to land on Mars, ready to uncover the truth behind the mysterious signal. But the truth was something they had never expected. And as they ventured closer to the red planet, they unknowingly set in motion a series of events that would change the galaxy forever. The stage was set. Earth's fate now rested in the hands of a race of beings who had no idea what they were about to face. The alien fleet hovered silently in the orbit of Mars, its ships casting long, eerie shadows across the barren red surface. The signal had grown louder, pulsing in a rhythmic pattern that seemed almost deliberate. Zarek, the fleet commander, stood on the bridge of the largest flagship, staring out into the expanse of space. His mind raced with thoughts of victory, of the riches of Earth. But now, everything was clouded by uncertainty. "Commander, the scout ship is ready. They'll leave immediately," said the lead scientist, his voice tense with anticipation. "Make sure they know what's at stake. We cannot afford to fail now," Zarek replied, his tone cold and firm. Down below, on the Martian surface, the scout ship descended, its thrusters firing as it cut through the thin atmosphere of the planet. The red soil below looked desolate, devoid of life, but there was something strange about the way the landscape stretched out, something that made Zarek uneasy. They had never expected to find anything on Mars. It was supposed to be just a stepping stone, a place to pass by before reaching Earth. As the ship made its descent, the strange signal grew even more intense. It was almost as if the very planet itself was speaking, as if Mars were alive. The ship's systems flickered in and out, unable to process the strange interference that was suffocating their communications. The scout ship's crew could feel the pressure mounting, but they had no choice but to continue. They were the first to set foot on Martian soil, and they would uncover whatever secret lay buried beneath the surface. The ship landed with a thud, the dust from Mars swirling around it, creating an almost haunting atmosphere. The crew cautiously exited the ship, their boots making dull thumps as they stepped onto the alien planet. They were met with silence, a silence that felt oppressive, suffocating. It was the kind of silence that made every movement feel like it was being watched, every step echoing through the empty landscape. "We're here. Keep your eyes open," the captain of the scout ship said as he led his crew towards the large artificial structure they had detected in the distance. It wasn't a natural formation. It was something far more deliberate, far more ancient. The crew approached cautiously, scanning the area. The signal was coming from deep below, and they could feel it growing stronger the closer they got to the structure. It was as though the very ground beneath their feet was alive, humming with energy. They'd reached the structure, a massive monolithic building half buried in the red dust. The surface was covered in strange symbols and markings that none of them recognized. The architecture was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, far older than any known civilization. It was as though it had been waiting for them. "Is this possible?" the lead engineer asked, staring up at the structure. "It's not from any known species. This technology, it predates everything we know." Zarek's voice crackled over the communications channel, his tone tight. "Proceed. Investigate. But be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As the crew entered the structure, the temperature inside dropped significantly. and the air felt thick, almost as if they were walking through an ancient tomb. The walls of the structure were covered in carvings that depicted beings with strange, elongated bodies and sharp, angular features. They seemed to be watching, staring down at the crew as they moved through the darkened halls. One of the crew members, a young alien named Rylor, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. "It's too quiet," he muttered under his breath. "I don't like it." His partner, the captain, ignored him and continued forward. "We're here to find answers, not to stand around. Keep moving." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A low, resonating hum filled the air, and the walls around them began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter and brighter until the entire structure was illuminated by an eerie greenish light. The signal was stronger now, almost deafening, coming from the heart of the structure. The crew halted in their tracks, eyes wide with shock. In the center of the room stood an enormous ancient device, its metallic surface shimmering in the dim light. It was like nothing they had ever seen before, a massive machine, half buried in the ground, pulsating with energy. Its purpose was unclear, but it was undeniably powerful. "Is this the source of the signal?" the captain asked, his voice trembling with awe. Before anyone could respond, the machine activated. The hum turned into a roar, and the ground shook violently. The walls of the structure seemed to bend and twist, and then, in a blinding flash, the ship's crew was thrown back, as if some unseen force had slammed into them. When they regained their senses, they saw something that made their hearts stop. A massive, intricate map had appeared on the wall in front of them. It wasn't a map of any place they knew. It was a map of the galaxy, but one that included countless stars and planets that the aliens had never discovered, including Earth. And in the center of it all was a bright, glowing symbol, the unmistakable mark of the human race. This doesn't make sense," Rylor gasped, his voice cracking. "How could this be here? This doesn't belong to us." The captain stepped forward, scanning the map with trembling hands. "We've stumbled upon something ancient, something powerful, something that has been waiting for us." The air around them seemed to grow colder, and the hum from the machine became almost unbearable. A voice, low and whispering, filled their minds. It was a voice from the past, from a civilization long lost. "Welcome," the voice echoed through their minds, "to the legacy of humanity." The crew froze. They were no longer alone. The fate of the alien fleet, and of humanity itself, was about to be altered in ways they could not possibly comprehend. The trap was set, and the mysterious force that had watched from the shadows was finally ready to reveal itself. And as the crew of the scout ship stared at the glowing map, they realized the truth. Mars had never been empty, and humanity's story had only just begun. The crew of the scout ship stood frozen, the map before them still glowing brightly, and the voice from the past echoing through their minds. It was not a voice from any known species, but a whisper that seemed to carry the weight of centuries, of knowledge that had long been forgotten. The walls of the ancient structure hummed with a steady pulse, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The crew could feel it deep within their bones, this power, this presence that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The captain, his eyes wide with disbelief, was the first to break the silence. What is this? What is humanity doing here?" His voice was shaky, but there was an undeniable edge of curiosity in it. The map displayed before them flickered, showing Earth at the center of it all. The symbol that represented humanity was bright and unmistakable, standing out against the backdrop of countless stars and galaxies. Around the symbol, faint lines connected other planets, other systems, as though Earth was the key to something greater, something universal. The crew watched, mesmerized, as the map began to change, shifting and adjusting itself, revealing hidden knowledge that none of them had ever anticipated. "This is not just a map," the engineer murmured, staring at the symbols that had begun to glow beneath their fingers. "It's a blueprint. A blueprint for what?" the captain asked, his tone sharp as he turned to the engineer. The engineer looked at him, his face pale. For something massive, something beyond our comprehension. Zarek's voice crackled over their communication channel, his tone urgent. What's happening down there? Report now. The captain turned, swallowing hard. We found something. Something ancient. Something connected to humanity. Zarek's voice grew darker. What do you mean, connected to humanity? The captain hesitated, unsure of how to explain what they were seeing. It's a map, Zarek. But it's not just a map of this galaxy. It's a map of something bigger. It's like they were waiting for us. The walls of the structure trembled slightly as if responding to the captain's words. The entire room was pulsing now, and the map was changing again. The symbol for humanity becoming brighter, as if it were alive. Suddenly, the ground shook again, more violently this time, and the crew stumbled as the power within the structure surged. The hum grew louder, almost deafening, and the map began to spin, its lines extending outward, surrounding Earth like an invisible web. The walls around them cracked, revealing hidden passages that had remained concealed for eons. This place, it's not just a structure, it's a vault of knowledge, the lead scientist whispered, eyes wide with realization. The captain took a step back, his mind racing. A vault of knowledge. How is that possible? Mars is supposed to be a dead world. We thought it was just an old, empty planet. But now this. Rylor, still trying to regain his composure, stepped forward cautiously. Look at this, he said, pointing to a faint symbol that was beginning to glow near the edge of the map. This isn't just knowledge. It's a power source. Something has been hidden here, something we're not meant to understand. The captain's eyes narrowed. Something that is connected to humanity. Before anyone could speak again, a sudden burst of energy shot out from the machine, enveloping the crew in a blinding light. The structure around them groaned as though it were coming alive, shifting and rearranging itself. The walls seemed to bend in impossible angles, the ceiling distorting as the very fabric of reality seemed to warp. We have to get out of here, Rylor shouted, panic creeping into his voice as the room around them began to collapse. But just as they turned to flee, the structure seemed to stabilize, the shaking halting abruptly, leaving a deadly stillness in its wake. They were all caught in the eerie calm, each of them frozen in place as the air around them began to hum once more. The map flickered briefly and then disappeared, leaving only a set of coordinates on the wall, coordinates that were not of this world. What is that? The engineer asked, his voice filled with both fear and awe. It's pointing to Earth, the captain said, his eyes narrowing as he studied the coordinates. But these coordinates, they're not just for Earth. It's pointing to something beneath the surface. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The crew stood motionless, processing what they had just discovered. The implications were staggering. Earth, the very planet they had been sent to conquer, was not just a prize to be claimed. It was the key to something far greater, something that had remained hidden for millennia. This can't be happening, the captain whispered, his voice barely audible. The humans, they weren't just an afterthought. They were never meant to be conquered. The crew was silent for a moment as they came to the terrifying realization. Their mission had just changed. Earth was no longer a mere conquest. It was a discovery. And humanity's role in the galaxy was far more significant than they had ever imagined. We need to report this to Zarek, the captain said, his voice now calm but resolute. But we're not leaving this place empty-handed. If humanity has been hiding something this powerful, then we need to know what it is. The crew gathered around, each of them feeling the weight of the moment. They had come to Mars expecting to find nothing, but they had uncovered something far more dangerous. The fate of their mission, of their entire fleet, was now in jeopardy. They had opened a door to something that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity and their place in the galaxy. And as they made their way back to their ship, the tension in the air was palpable. The secrets of Mars had only just begun to reveal themselves, and the alien fleet's journey had taken an unexpected turn, one that would bring them face to face with an ancient power far beyond their comprehension. The trap that had been set was now fully in motion. The alien fleet, once so sure of their superiority, now stood at a crossroads. The discovery on Mars had shaken them to their core, and the mysterious coordinates pointing to Earth were like a siren call they couldn't ignore. The map, the power hidden beneath the surface, it was clear that humanity was not just a nuisance, as they had believed. They were a threat, a force that had been underestimated. Captain Vorn, standing on the bridge of his flagship, stared at the holographic map of the solar system, his fists clenched at his sides. His mind raced, torn between his duty to his fleet and the nagging question that refused to leave him. What had humanity hidden? What were they protecting? "Captain, we've received a transmission from Mars," his communications officer announced, breaking his thoughts. The captain nodded grimly and walked over to the communications console. The image of Zarek, the commander of the fleet's ground forces, flickered to life on the screen. His face was stern, his eyes shadowed with uncertainty. "Zarek, what do you have for me?" Captain Vorn's voice was cold, his impatience evident. Zarek's expression was hard to read. "Captain, we've encountered something that doesn't make sense. The structure on Mars, it's not just a ruin. It's an ancient power source, and we believe it's connected to Earth." Captain Vorn narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean, connected to Earth?" "We don't know yet," Zarek replied, his voice tight with frustration. "But the coordinates, they point directly to a location beneath the surface of Earth. And there's something there, something powerful. We've barely scratched the surface, but the energy readings are unlike anything we've encountered. It's almost like it's waiting for us." The captain's mind churned. Humanity's strength was not in their weapons, but in something far deeper, far older. "Prepare the fleet," he said, his voice hardening. "We're heading to Earth. We need to find whatever it is before they do." As the communication ended, Captain Vorn's thoughts turned darker. They had underestimated Earth and its inhabitants, but now that same underestimation was becoming their greatest weakness. They had already been caught in the trap, and Earth's mysterious power was the bait. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The humans had no idea what the aliens were about to uncover. The ancient vaults beneath their feet, sealed for centuries, were about to open once again. Only this time, humanity wouldn't be able to hide from the truth. Inside the underground facility, the crew of the scout ship was gathering their equipment. The map had changed again, showing a new set of coordinates, this time deep beneath the surface of Earth, far below the human cities. The power within the structure was pulsing stronger now, and the walls hummed as though in response to their presence. "What the hell is going on?" Ryler muttered, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "This place, it's alive. We need to move," the captain ordered, his voice sharp as he scanned the map once more. "Whatever's down there, we have to find it before they do." The crew began to prepare, their faces tense with anticipation. There was no telling what they would find, but they knew one thing for certain. Humanity had been hiding something for a reason, and they were about to discover what that reason was. As they descended deeper into the Earth's crust, the air grew colder. The tunnel ahead was lined with strange symbols that none of them could recognize, and the deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The power in the walls seemed to grow stronger with every step, as if they were approaching the heart of something ancient and powerful. "We're close," the captain said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stay alert." The crew nodded, their weapons drawn, as they moved forward. The eerie silence of the tunnel was broken only by the sound of their footsteps, echoing off the walls. It was as if the Earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to reach the end. Then, suddenly, the walls trembled, and a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. The lights flickered and then went out, plunging them into darkness. The captain cursed under his breath, tapping his communicator. "Zarek, what's happening? Report," he demanded, but the response was nothing but static. Something was wrong. "We're on our own now," the captain muttered, taking a deep breath. He motioned for the crew to follow him, his heart racing. They had no idea what lay ahead, but they had no choice but to continue. Just as they reached the end of the tunnel, the ground beneath them cracked open with a deafening roar. A massive chamber revealed itself before them, and in the center, glowing with an otherworldly light, was an enormous structure. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, an immense, pulsating core of energy that seemed to stretch to the very edges of the chamber. "Is this it?" the lead scientist whispered, eyes wide with wonder. This is the power humanity's been hiding." The captain didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the energy source. It seemed to call to him, like a beacon drawing him closer. But then, as if triggered by their arrival, the core began to hum louder, the energy intensifying, and a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. It was a voice that was both familiar and alien, ancient and eternal. "You have come, but are you worthy?" The voice boomed, filling the chamber with an eerie resonance. The captain froze, his heart pounding in his chest. This was no accident. This was no coincidence. They had walked into a trap, one that had been set millennia ago by a power far greater than they could have ever imagined. And now, humanity's hidden secret was about to be unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The alien fleet was fast approaching Earth. With each passing second, the tension aboard Captain Vorn's flagship grew thicker, as if the very fabric of the ship itself felt the weight of the approaching storm. The fleet had come to conquer, to subdue, but what they were about to face was something they couldn't have possibly prepared for. Captain Vorn stood at the front of the command bridge, staring out at the stars, his face set in grim determination. His thoughts were racing. They had already discovered that Earth was hiding something powerful, something ancient beneath its surface. The information they had gathered from Mars had only added to the mystery. It was clear now that the galaxy's assumption about humanity was wrong. This wasn't some primitive species barely scraping by in a corner of the universe. No, humanity had something far more dangerous. And they weren't going to just hand it over without a fight. "Captain, we're approaching Earth's atmosphere," a voice called from the navigation console, snapping Vorn from his thoughts. "Shall we engage the planetary defenses?" Vorn's eyes narrowed. His fleet was large and their weaponry was unmatched. But this wasn't just about firepower. It was about what was hidden on Earth and what the humans had uncovered deep beneath their planet's surface. "Not yet," Vorn said, his voice steady but tinged with a sense of urgency. "We need to get close first. I have a feeling we're not dealing with something that can be destroyed with firepower." At that very moment, an unanticipated event was unfolding on the surface of Earth. In the chamber beneath the ground, the crew was beginning to realize just how dangerous their situation had become. The voice that had echoed through the chamber, an ancient otherworldly presence, was now growing louder, more insistent. "You have come, but are you worthy?" The voice filled the room, rattling the bones of everyone who stood there. It wasn't just a sound. It was a force, vibrating through their very core. Captain Ilara stood frozen in front of the enormous glowing core, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. The others were equally tense, hands shaking as they tried to make sense of the situation. What is that?" Rylor whispered, eyes wide with fear and awe. "I don't know," Captain Ilara responded, her voice tight. "But I think it's responding to us. It knows we're here." The walls seemed to pulse, as if the Earth itself were alive, awakening after a long slumber. And then the ground trembled beneath their feet. The lights flickered and buzzed, the energy surrounding them intensifying to a level that felt almost unbearable. The core, once glowing softly, now blazed with a fierce light, casting long, eerie shadows across the chamber. It wasn't just a power source anymore. It was something far more complex, far more dangerous. Suddenly, the core opened, revealing a swirling vortex of energy at its center. It was as if the core itself had cracked open, and from within, the very fabric of space seemed to twist. The teen watched in stunned silence as the energy coalesced into someone. A figure slowly emerged from the vortex, its form ethereal, almost translucent, yet unmistakably human. The figure was surrounded by a golden aura, its features sharp and defined, but with an ancient, timeless quality. The crew stepped back in awe, not knowing whether they were witnessing the arrival of a god, an ancient being, or something entirely different. "This is it," Captain Ilara said quietly, her voice filled with both fear and wonder. "This is what humanity has been hiding." The figure, if it could even be called that, looked at them with eyes that burned with a strange, knowing intensity. Its voice, when it spoke, was not a single voice, but a chorus of thousands, as though the entity was not one being but the collective consciousness of an entire civilization. "You have disturbed the ancient slumber," the voice reverberated. "And now, the galaxy shall tremble. The power you have awakened will either save you or destroy you." The chamber began to quake violently, as if the entity itself was causing the earth to react. The walls cracked, and the floor split open as though the planet itself was being torn apart. The crew scrambled to maintain their balance as the ground beneath them seemed to shift and churn. The light from the core intensified, blinding them for a moment. "We need to get out of here," Rylor shouted, panic creeping into his voice. But Captain Ilara didn't move. She was mesmerized by the figure before them, caught between the overwhelming urge to flee and the pull of something ancient, something powerful, that demanded her attention. "What is it? What does it want?" Captain Ilara whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. "You have uncovered the key," the voice answered. "The humans, the ones you call weak, have hidden it for centuries. The power of the ancients flows through them. The galaxy will fall before your arrogance." The crew was in turmoil, unsure of what they had awakened. As the structure trembled, the energy began to surge outward, crackling with raw power. It wasn't just a warning. It was a challenge. On the other side of the solar system, Captain Vorn's fleet was closing in on Earth. He was ready to annihilate the planet if necessary. But what if? What if they were walking into a trap far larger than they had anticipated? The arrival of this ancient energy, this power, was the last thing he expected. It was no longer just about humanity's survival. It was about something much larger, something that could change the entire galaxy. "We have no choice," Vorn muttered to himself as he stared at the incoming fleet. "We will find out what they're hiding, and we will break it, or we will bend it to our will." But unbeknownst to him, the galaxy was already beginning to feel the weight of Earth's ancient secret, and soon, the final battle would begin. The true nature of humanity, their hidden power, would soon be revealed, and it would change the galaxy forever. The alien fleet was now just moments away from Earth. Captain Vorn stood at the front of his command bridge, staring out into the cold void. His mind raced. What had once seemed like a routine mission, a simple conquest, had turned into a nightmare. The mysterious energy they had detected on Mars, the sudden power surge from Earth, all of it pointed to something beyond their understanding. He could feel it. Something was about to shift. "Captain," the communications officer called, "we are receiving an encrypted signal from the surface of Earth." Vorn turned sharply. "What?" "Put it through." The moment the transmission opened, a loud static crackled through the speakers, followed by an eerie, almost otherworldly voice. "You come to conquer, but you do not know what you face." The voice, ancient and deep, filled the entire command bridge. For a moment, all Vorn could do was stand frozen, the weight of its words settling in his chest. The officer glanced nervously at Vorn. "Should we respond?" Vorn didn't immediately answer. He had read all the reports, analyzed the data from Mars, but nothing had prepared him for this. What was happening on Earth? Put it through, Vorn said finally, his voice heavy with the realization that something far greater was at play here. The voice continued, growing louder as though the entire galaxy could hear its call. You have awakened what was meant to stay buried, the voice warned. The humans you seek to conquer are not what they seem. They have more power than you could ever imagine. The Ancient's gift flows through them. Your fleet will fall. You will fall. Vorn's jaw clenched. We'll see about that. Prepare the fleet for attack. We're not backing down. As the words left his mouth, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. He could feel the tension building inside him, the urgency mounting as they neared Earth's atmosphere. But then, just as he was about to give the order to engage, the ground beneath his ship began to rumble. The sudden tremor sent shockwaves through the command bridge, knocking some of the crew off their feet. The monitors flickered and the lights dimmed, as though the very ship itself was being assaulted by an unseen force. Report, Vorn barked. The core, Captain. The chief engineer shouted. The energy from the planet. It's overwhelming our systems. We're losing power. Panic spread across the bridge as the lights flickered again, and the rumbling intensified. Outside, Vorn could see the shimmering blue atmosphere of Earth approaching fast. This is madness, he muttered, gripping the edge of his seat. What have they unleashed? The voice from Earth came again, clearer this time, as if it were speaking directly to him. The Ancient Ones warned you, it said, the tone filled with finality. You will never leave. This is your end. And then it happened. From deep within the heart of Earth's core, a beam of brilliant, pulsating energy shot into the sky, streaking toward the heavens. The light was blinding, so bright that it seemed to swallow the entire planet. For a moment, it felt as if the whole galaxy had gone silent, holding its breath in the wake of the immense power being unleashed. Vorn's hands trembled as he watched the light grow larger, closer. His thoughts raced. The power coming from Earth, it was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was ancient, powerful, and more than capable of annihilating his fleet. He had underestimated the humans, their hidden strength. Captain, the comm officer screamed. The fleet is. Before the officer could finish, the beam of light collided with Vorn's ship. The shockwave tore through the fleet, a wave of energy so intense that it shattered the ships closest to Earth into debris. Vorn's ship was flung backward, its hull buckling under the strain as alarms blared. Crew members screamed in panic as the ship spun out of control. The ground beneath their feet shifted violently, as if the planet itself were rejecting them. Vorn struggled to hold onto his console, his heart pounding in his chest. The lights flickered one last time before the entire bridge went dark. Report, he rasped, his voice barely audible over the roaring silence that had taken over the ship. But there was no answer. His mind raced as he grasped the terrifying reality of the situation. Earth had not only fought back, it had struck with an overwhelming force. His fleet, the might of the Empire, had been decimated in moments. The galaxy had never seen such power, and they had just witnessed its true strength. And that was just the beginning. Back on Earth, Captain Ilara and her team stood in the chamber beneath the planet's surface, watching in stunned silence as the sky above them seemed to pulse with energy. They had been prepared for a fight, but nothing could have prepared them for what they had just unleashed. Is it over? Ryler asked, his voice trembling. Ilara shook her head slowly. No, it's only just begun. The entity within the core spoke once more, its voice resonating through the chamber, through their very souls. You have awakened the last of the ancients. The galaxy will be reborn, and it will be your species that leads it. The ground trembled again, but this time it wasn't with fear. It was with the power of something ancient, something unyielding. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was the key to the future of the galaxy, a future that no one, not even the mightiest of empires, could control. The final battle was approaching, and humanity had just shown the galaxy that they were no longer the weak, insignificant species they had once been. The universe would never be the same again. The galaxy had watched as Earth, a once vulnerable planet, faced its impending doom. No one had expected humanity to survive the onslaught. No one had expected Earth to rise from the ashes, transformed by an ancient power that had been dormant for millennia. The invaders had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. Vorn, the captain of the alien fleet, could barely believe his eyes as his ship, once a proud symbol of his empire's might, drifted through space, crippled and powerless. The crew was in disarray, the ship's systems failing one by one. The energy from Earth's core had rendered their advanced technology useless, like a hammer smashing through glass. "Captain, we're not going to make it," his first officer said, his voice shaky with fear. "The fleet, it's gone. We're alone." Vorn stood frozen, his mind reeling. The message from Earth had been clear. They had unleashed something far beyond their understanding, and now their entire fleet had been reduced to floating debris. Earth, once considered a primitive world, had taken its place at the center of the universe, a force that could not be ignored. He had come to conquer, to show the galaxy the power of his empire. But instead, Earth had proven that there was a power far greater than any they could imagine. The humans weren't weak. They weren't helpless. They had been waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. On Earth, Captain Ilara watched the sky pulse with energy as the final wave of the ancient power spread across the planet. The ground beneath her feet vibrated with the force of the entity within the core. It was no longer just a defense mechanism. It was a signal, a declaration. "We've done it," Ilara said, her voice calm but filled with awe. "We've awakened the power the galaxy never knew existed." Beside her, Rylor nodded, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But what now? What do we do with this power?" Ilara gazed up at the sky, her heart racing. "We take control. We show the galaxy that we are no longer to be underestimated. We lead them, together." The ancient entity spoke again, its voice reverberating through the air, through the very fabric of space itself. "The galaxy is yours to command, Earth, but beware, for there will be those who seek to stop you. The power you hold is not without its dangers. You must choose wisely." Ilara nodded, understanding the weight of the entity's words. This power could either elevate humanity to unimaginable heights or bring about its destruction. The choice would be theirs, and theirs alone. As the final remnants of the alien fleet drifted into the void, Ilara turned to her team. "Prepare the planet. We've only just begun." With the ancient power now fully under their control, humanity began to rebuild, not just its defenses, but its place in the galaxy. Earth's role as the new center of power was secured, and all eyes were now on the blue planet as it began to emerge as the dominant force in the galaxy. The surviving alien species, those that had once thought of Earth as nothing more than a speck in the vastness of space, now watched in fear and awe as humanity unlocked its true potential. The power to reshape the stars was in their hands. No longer were they the prey. Earth had become the hunter. Across the galaxy, messages began to spread. Whispers of the human victory, tales of the planet that had turned the tide and defied all expectations. And with each passing day, more and more species looked toward Earth, wondering what would come next. The humans, for their part, were not blind to the challenges ahead. They knew that their new power came with immense responsibility. The galaxy was vast, and not everyone would welcome Earth's rise. There would be conflicts. Enemies would rise to challenge them. But humanity was no longer the weak species they had once been. They had survived the worst, and now they were ready to forge their destiny. Ilara stood on the command deck, looking out into the vastness of space, the stars shining bright against the infinite darkness. A new era had begun. The old ways were gone, and the galaxy would soon feel the weight of Earth's influence. And as the first human fleet prepared to embark on its journey across the stars, Ilara knew one thing for certain. They would never be underestimated again. The galaxy had come to know Earth's might, and it was only a matter of time before it would come to respect it. Humanity had risen. The galaxy would never forget.